Question number two. As a system administrator, you have been asked to revoke a specific user's license that left the organization. While you are attempting to deactivate the user, the system prevents user from being deactivated. What would likely be the reason? We have four options. One is the user is having executive role in the system. The other one is the user is being referenced in an email alert. The third one is user is an owner of multiple accounts. And the fourth one is the user is having some open tasks in the system. So this question is pretty straightforward and a very common scenario when someone is leaving an organization, right? You wanted to ensure that the user is not able to log in and ensure that the user, it's deactivated, right? Because deactivating an user will revoke the license, right? So that's what typically, as a system administrator you will do. But in this case, the question is, for some reason, it is not, the system is not letting you to deactivate a user. So we need to figure out what would likely be the reason, right? So to demonstrate this, what I have done is I've just created a user named John Doe. And this user has got a role of CEO, so that is an executive role. And this user also has an open task, right? So this task is related to on-corp, and if you look at the assigned to, right, it's John Doe, and the status is in progress, which means the user is having an executive role in the system. The condition is done. The user is having open task. That is also done. The user is owner of multiple accounts. So let's see that. So yes, John's account, right? Accounts. There are two accounts, Zoom Info and OnCorp Finance Limited. So both are the both for both the accounts, right? John is the owner. As you can see, the account owner alias name, right? It's John Doe. So this is perfect. And so I just kept this one, as is option B. There is a reason to it. So let's see, having these three conditions met, right? Executive role, multiple accounts, and open task. Let's see. Let's try to, deactivate the user and then see what happens. So I'll just go to the user record. I'll say edit, and we'll just deactivate the user. I'll just say save. Perfect. Now I'm able to deactivate the user, which indicates that all these three conditions, right? Role, multiple accounts, owner for multiple accounts, and having open tasks in the system will not, really prevent prevent the admin from deactivating the user, which clearly, points out that option B is the right answer. But let's cross check that as well. User is being referenced in an workflow email alert. So to first, before we do that, let's try to reactivate that user. Number one, so I do have an email alert already created. It's a customer case to be already escalated. And let me go here. So in this time, I'm gonna have John Doe as one of the recipients or as the only recipient. Yeah. Let's say save. Yeah. So you do have a workflow email alert, right? Email alert, and the recipient is John Doe, correct? So now let's go back to the user's profile and let's go to edit and then deactivate the user. As you can see, the system clearly says that this user is being referenced in an email alert, so we cannot, right? We cannot deactivate the user. Fair enough. So which clearly indicates that option B is the right one, isn't it? But there is one more, right, important information that you should remember, which is, let me go back to the email alert. Let me go back here. So now the user is still active, right? So I'll go to the email alert. Let me edit the email alert and let me just add one more user, Rajesh. Yeah, it's me. So let me save this, right? And now let me go back to the user's profile and then user's record and then try to deactivate, right? So now still the user is a recipient of the email alert, right? And now, as you can see, the system was allowing me to, deactivate the user. So this is the difference or key difference that we should remember as a system administrator. So of course, the right answer is this, right? If the user is being referenced in workflow email alert, yes, you cannot deactivate a user, but the constraint is or the condition is if and only if the user that you are trying to deactivate is the only recipient. So in this case, the system did allow to deactivate the user because that is, John Doe is one of the recipients, right, or not the only recipient. That is the reason system did let me, to deactivate the user. Okay, in the earlier case, before I added Rajesh, right, John Doe was the only user, only recipient, so the system did not allow me to deactivate the user. So just remember this key point, yeah, as a system administrator, because this is a very common scenario that you will come across in your project. So keeping the limitations and constraints in mind, you can just deactivate the user. So one additional piece of information that we typically do in the projects is when we couldn't deactivate a user, right, for some reason, we freeze the account so that we ensure that the user is not able to access the art. So we do that first, and then we will try to spend some additional time, try to transfer the accounts that the user was managing, you know try to clean up the records that the user is currently holding on to. All such things we will do it, and then finally we'll come back and then deactivate the user. Okay, so that freeze option is still there, but the only thing is freeze option will not, when you try to freeze the user, right? If I go back to the users, yeah, if I try to freeze the user, it won't revoke the license. The license will still be, considered as active. So that is the only difference. But at least, right, from our project standpoint, it will still help us to, not let user to log into the system. Anyways, that's an additional information. But the right answer to this question is option B. So user, if a user is referenced in an email alert as the only recipient, then you cannot deactivate the user.